Welcome to the American Duchess podcast. We want to give a shout out to Dandy Wellington for his generosity in letting us use his music, Greenhouse Stomp, in each episode. If you like his music, you can find Dandy on YouTube, Instagram, Spotify, and iTunes, as well as jazzing up the streets of New York City almost every night. All right, now let's get on with the show.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the American Duchess podcast. I am Abby and I am in quarantine. It is week 5 of quarantine. That's right, you guys. I'm getting ready to start week 6. And so this pandemic production is brought to you by toilet paper. Anyways, sorry. This is going to be a very silly episode. We are talking to Dr. Sally Tuckett. Frankly, one of the loves of my life, I have to say.
Reciprocated.
Yeah, oh, thank you. And we are here to talk to Sally today about a really cool opportunity for people who are currently isolated and quarantined to help get their learn on, to help study fashion history and to learn some things and have a good time, right, Sally?
Absolutely.
For those of you who are listening who might not know who you are, would you be so kind as to introduce yourself to us?
Certainly. So, hi everybody. I just flipped the wire everywhere. Hi everybody. I'm Dr. Sally Tuckett and I am a lecturer at the University of Glasgow in Scotland. So this quarantine is extending around the globe and I'm talking to you from my flat in Edinburgh.
So Sally, you're head of the program, the dress history program at the University of Glasgow, correct?
Yes, that's right.
And
Yes.
How long have you been head?
I've been running that program since 2014 and the program itself has been at Glasgow since 2011.
Yes, it was right after I graduated. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sorry. We saw what you wanted to do and we thought that looks good. We could make a whole program out of that. Yeah, so it's a year-long master's program, so it's postgraduate.
How long have you studied dress history?
Okay, it's a bit of a weird one. I didn't really set out to become a dress historian. Nowadays, I think there are more people that are arriving on the scene that are like, I am a dress historian, that is what I shall be. And I was a bit more accidental. So I studied history at university, probably what I would call like political history, more of the sort of sedate, slow stuff. Yeah.
On this
history.
date, this document.
Yeah, for my master's degree. So after I finished my undergraduate, I decided I didn't want to stop studying. I love studying. I love history in general and studied Scottish history. And as part of that, one of the courses on that master's was about material culture. So stuff in general, things, the history of things and what that tells you about everybody else. And that sort of segued into dress and clothing. So I kind of consider myself more of a social historian who just happens to use dress as the way in. So dress and textiles for me, I think are a really great way to understand the past. When you get into this field, there's all this semantics around it, and you can either be a dress historian or some people call themselves fashion historians. But so I would go more on the side of dress history because I think there's more to dress than just fashion.
Yes.
And semantics we can get into again.
Yes, that's for another episode that we'll probably record next Friday.
Yeah.
I hope everyone's ready. Excellent. That's fascinating because I think I knew that, or at least you told me that like many moons ago, that you just kind of end up falling into dress history. With this degree, with you being head of this program at the University of Glasgow, what you did, and this came out a couple years ago, I believe, is through an online website called FutureLearn, which is it seems like it's like a British Skillshare or Udemy or something like that, where you can take, or Coursera, you can take online courses that are taught by, professionals and extremely experienced teachers or actual professors online. And so University of Glasgow did this course in collaboration with the historic royal palaces, correct? And you developed a course about royal fashion history.
Yes.
Right? Yes.
So
tell me
do
about
you guys call the MOOCs massive open online courses?
No, but I like that.
Yeah. This course is a MOOC, and FutureLearn is a learning platform that has all of these courses that are available, typically set up and run by universities, but often in collaboration with other institutions. And this is one of those examples. So historic royal palaces are the body that are in charge of, they take care of Kensington Palace, the Tower of London, Hampton Court Palace, and there's another one in Northern Ireland and I can't remember what it's called, sorry. We didn't go to that one. And so they're in charge of all these palaces, and they also have a collection called the Royal Ceremonial Dress Collection. It's a fantastic body of clothing which is connected with either the royal family or court life, and it goes back literally centuries. And so they were interested in developing something which would show people what this collection is like, because dress history, particularly if you're looking at surviving garments, isn't always accessible to the wider population because they're quite difficult to store. They've got to be kept in sort of controlled conditions. So a course like this is a great way for people to see what is in the collection and to discover what dress history is and could be. They were looking for somebody that would want to create the course materials using the collection as the starting point, and we got involved. And so it became a collaboration between the University of Glasgow and Historic Royal Palaces. First ran in 2018, I think. So this is now the
second year.
Second year, and we've run it. This is the fourth time it's run.
Excellent. And it's currently open and running right now. I went to check yesterday. It seems like they opened it up when everything started to kind of go bananas.
Yeah.
And
Glasgow has a lot of MOOCs available on lots of different stuff. So if your listeners are really interested in things like the history of Robert Burns, they have a fantastic Robert Burns one. Nice. There's one about Scottish clans and clan history that's also running at the moment. It's got a little bit about Tartan in there. So,
Are you in that one?
I wrote the Tartan bit. Yeah. But I'm not in any of the videos, so you wouldn't have to look at my ugly mug for it. But yes, when the British lockdown happened, which was 3 weeks ago, the university made this conscious decision that we've got all this material and like people are going to be bored. Let's put it out there and just get people engaged. And
that's awesome.
We've been absolutely thrilled. So on Royal Fashion at the moment, we have over 10,000 people signed up.
Whoa, that's amazing. Holy crap.
So thank God there are no essays to mark, because otherwise I would never leave my house.
You'd be like, too much work.
Yeah. We deliberately opened them up because we thought people are going to want something to do. And if dress history can offer anything, it's a decent distraction from the rest of the world.
Very true. It's a wonderful escapism.
It is.
That's amazing. So how does the course work? I saw you have different topics and themes and things, like what to expect if they were to sign up for it.
It's really easy. It's free to sign up. Absolutely free. The way it's broken down is it's arranged by week, and this course runs for 5 weeks. It should take you 5 weeks to complete it, but some people finish it much quicker because they just like devour all the information and it's like, oh, I'm done. But it's broken down by week. The idea being that each week you deal with a different theme and a different topic. And so we start with the Tudors and Henry VIII in week 1. We then go to the Stuarts in week 2, the Georgians in week 3, the Victorians in week 4, right up to the Windsors in week 5. And each week has about between 15 and 20 different steps. And each step might be an article to read, a short video to watch. We have a few little activities in there. In week 1, for example, there are instructions of how you might want to make a pseudo Tudor ruff with a piece of ribbon. And in week 2, we ask people if they want to design their own mask costume, they can do that. So like the elaborate Stuart masks from the 17th century,
nice.
All fancy dressed. So there's different things in each week to do. There's a little quiz in some of them. The idea is you do it all at your own pace. So if you read one article and you decide that's enough, had enough of that, you just put it aside, you turn off your computer, you walk away, and you can come back at another time. You can even skip weeks if you want to, or skip steps if you think, oh, menswear, dull, don't want to read about that. So we have some learners who just jump, they're not that bothered about the Tudors, so they jump straight to the Victorians and the Windsors because that's what they're interested in. So you can dip in and out.
Yeah.
But I would recommend starting from the beginning and working your way through, because that's how we designed it, to so that you can see that there's a lot of continuity. They may be 500 years apart, but a lot of what the royal family do today was being done by Henry VIII and Elizabeth I 500 years ago.
Yes.
So there's similarities and differences.
So even though it's technically like a buffet of fashion history, you can go up to the dessert table if that's what you want to do. But to really experience the buffet in its glory of fashion history, You need to start with the appetizers, the bread, and then work your way up through the main course. And then eventually you'll finish with the cheese plate.
That is absolutely it. Or if you want to take it from the dressing metaphor, you can't wear your ball gown unless you've got the right undergarments on. So you've got to put your shift on, then your stays, and then your hoop skirt, and then you put the gown on. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. You got to do all the layers first.
You're just so excited by the buffet.
I know. I'm like, oh, it's a buffet. This course is suitable for anyone. They don't have to have any experience, or should they have some pre-existing knowledge, or is it just what have you?
No, there's whoever wants to do it can do it. There's no requirements. There's no
age limits.
No age limits. Like there's obviously we've aimed it at sort of secondary school level and upwards, to high school and upwards, because the activities are different. Like you could just watch a video. If you just wanted to watch the video, you could watch the video.
Yeah. And then that's great to know, because I don't know how high schoolers would feel about this, but I get messages, and American Duchess gets messages all the time from, I call them sweet bobbies, like bright young thing, who are like, oh, I want to do this, and I'm 16 and I'm so excited, and what do I do? What do I study? And I never thought about going, here, you can just take this free course on FutureLearn and just learn about the royal family. It's a buffet, so you'll get a taste of all the different time periods that you might find yourself interested or not interested in, and then you can actually step forward there. Do you even like this? Oh, so yes, if you're listening at home and you are a high schooler, take the course. If you're a college student, take the course. If you're a bored millennial at home, take the course.
Anybody can take the
course. Grandma, take the course. Everyone, just take it. Big family thing. It's great. Perfect. That's awesome though. No, like seriously, because at least that gives younger people a chance to test something out without having to invest college credit, college time, money. It's like, no, you can just test it out first. See what you like. Because you might realize that you don't actually care about the history, you just like the pretty clothes. And that's fine.
Yeah, and that's what that's the idea of all of these open courses, these massive open online courses. You can dip in and out. It is a chance to see if you might want to take it further. And each week we've got suggestions of further reading. We point people to websites of online collections. So you've got the V&A online or the Met, like they've got fabulous stuff. So if you want to explore further, it's a chance to learn.
Domain. Which is even better.
Thank you. Free copyright.
That's incredible. No, that's a great idea. Oh, I'm so excited by that. I don't know why the realization that it's something that a teenager could do just like totally got me going, but
it's the kind of thing, it's like anything. If you've got any kind of interest in a topic, and this is what I love about dress history in general, because you don't actually necessarily have to be interested in the dresses themselves, but if you're interested in the history, you're going to learn about the history of what these people were doing through what they were wearing.
Yes.
If you're interested in the royal family, absolutely. Literally putting yourself in their shoes and all that jazz. And with this course in particular, if we get a lot of people that are just fascinated by the royal family and want to know more about the royal family. So a fair bit of history involved in all of that. There's a bit, because we have to give a bit of the backstory and the context. So each week we've got a timeline with key dates. And that's one of my proudest bits of all of this, because it was like, we've got to have a timeline. Not everyone's going to know the British history. But then we also put in, so key dates, like Henry VIII dies, so-and-so acceides the throne, but key fashion dates as well. So if we know that something important happened according to fashion, you can see what happened at the same time, like in the bigger picture.
That's awesome.
It's a bit of everything. And it doesn't have to be whether if it is just a slight interest in dress, then this is for you. If it's a slight interest in British history, this is for you. If it's the two together, then it's a double whammy. And on you go.
That's awesome. Which segment's your favorite?
Oh, okay. So I've got a favorite week.
Oh, yes.
My favorite week is the Stuart. My historical background was the 17th century and 17th century Scotland in particular. I've got a real soft spot for the Stuarts because I think they're incredibly understudied in standard history and in dress history. I think the 17th century in general
it's wacky.
People doing great stuff out there. Yeah, the fashions are brilliant. The Mantua and all sorts coming to the end of the century. So I think that's my favorite week because I've got the soft spot for the Stuarts. So we talk about Charles I, who, spoiler alert, sorry guys, got his head cut off. And there's a lovely story attached to the fact that, this is where I think it's so brilliant, because not many people might want to know about Charles I in the first place, but he wasn't a particularly popular king, obviously, because he got his head chopped off. I think he's misunderstood, and I think that there's a much bigger history to it, a much bigger story. When he was walking to the execution block, the story goes that he wore 2 shirts to stop himself from shivering because he didn't want to look weak in front of his people. He was quite small. He wasn't a very imposing king. So we look at some of the portraits that are painted of him by Anthony van Dyck, who's a famous painter from the early 17th century, and how Van Dyck uses certain techniques to create this kingly image of Charles, and how dress may or may not play into that. And during that week, so as part of the course, we talked to curators of the historical palaces, and the people who are in charge of looking after these items. And it was one of my favorite items of all time, I think. Hilary Lynn, who was the curator we talked to that week, she brought out a leather jerkin, which dates from the 1640s, so at the time of the English Civil War. And it's got a provenance that connects it to Charles I.
Wow.
So this is very rare in itself. The later you get, so the closer you get to our own timeline, the more chance you've got of finding a garment that's connected to a member of the royal family. But by the time you get back to Charles, very little actually survives. Provenance is always going to be questionable. You've got to take it with a pinch of salt, but it's still a 1640s leather jerkin.
Yes, that in of itself is valuable.
It's amazing. And the craftsmanship involved in this, like the power that must have had to go through that needle to get it stitched together is just incredible. So all done by hand. But then out of the back of the jerkin, souvenir hunters at some point since that time have cut out tiny little bits of the back of it to take away as memento. Wow. And it's a really bizarre bit that they've cut out, and it's just incredible because I think it shows the power of dress. We're not sure that this jerkin was ever worn by Charles, but somebody at some point was sure enough that they were like, I'll have a bit of that, and took it away with them.
Don't mind if I do.
yeah. So that for me was the favorite bit because it looks so, compared to a lot of the courtly dress that we looked at, which is gorgeous. Like the embroidery on some of this stuff is just amazing. And this leather jerkin is so small and pretty unassuming. For me, that was one of the most powerful bits. And also just because, I love the Stuarts and the 17th century. That's the best week for me.
Awesome. And you talk about Tartan in that week too, don't you? You do a little Scottish history in that week?
That comes later with the Georgians.
Okay. It's in the Georgians that you do the Tartan.
Yeah, that comes later with the Georgians because that's George IV, another great. He's probably not as misunderstood as Charles I, but he's not as well studied as some of our other British kings. But George IV is another great character, and he so in 1822 he came up to Edinburgh and he wore Highland dress, so the kilt, the hose, and a short jacket. He was decked out in all this finery, but he was quite a portly gentleman, and apparently didn't want to show off his legs, so he wore flesh-coloured tights beneath his kilt, and which caused all sorts of hilarity amongst the actual Scots who were like, what's going on here? He was part of a bigger movement which helped make tartan and Highland dress a very popular fabric. But again, I think we can talk about that another time.
We can talk about that another time.
He's another great one.
I wanted to give you a chance to say, like, it's not just English. We talk about Scottish dress and tartan because that's your expertise. And yes, that will come later.
Not as much Scottish stuff as I would have liked because it's driven by the palaces and the people that were living in these palaces. So until you get to the Georgian era and George IV and then Victoria, obviously, who loved the Highlands and loved Scotland, you don't really get much physical connection between the people that were living in these palaces and Scotland. Charles I only comes back once or twice, I think, and he doesn't really engage with very much of it. And George IV is when it really kicks off.
Awesome. Okay, so some silly questions now for you.
Excellent.
Why not? Who was the best dressed royal in your opinion?
Oh, that's a good one. Who was the best dressed royal? I can go for any period, can I?
Oh yeah, take your pick.
I feel like you should have prepared me for this. I'm going to give a lot of dead air for this now.
So I can cut all that dead air out.
Best dressed royal. I think style-wise, because I this is where semantics becoming part of it as well. Overall style, I think you've got to look to the 20th century, and I think Princess Margaret just had amazing style, like amazing. And I'm not a 20th century historian, but you see those clothes and those pictures of her, and she was just so glamorous. So I think maybe her. I think she would maybe be the best dressed. You never saw her in a state of undress.
No, unless you watch The Crown, but that's different.
Yeah, I mean, great, but different. Yeah.
All right, so
I'm going to go with Princess Margaret.
I have to agree. She's like, when you read more about her, what a complicated woman, first off. And 2, she always looked amazing, like fabulous, without fail.
She did. And so she's really interesting because we talk about the modern royals in the last week. Because she wasn't the queen, I think that gave her more freedom in terms of fashion and relationships with designers. And we talk a lot about diplomatic dressing and the diplomatic dressing of the royal family. And we see this a lot today. If the royals go on tour, they try and wear colours that are appropriate to that nation, or they wear designers that are linked to where they're going to. The Queen herself typically wears British designers, but Princess Margaret was very much like, didn't really have to play by those rules. So she's all the Dior and fabulous haute couture. Is just, she's great.
Who's the worst dressed?
I think that's going to have to be Queen Victoria. Sorry.
Is it just because you're not a fan of the very long Victorian era, or is it like post Albert's passing, like Albert's passing,
post Albert? I don't want to belittle her emotions in any way, shape, or form, but I think the image we have of
she's just little.
She was tiny. The popular perception of the 19th century is so much ingrained by that dour image of her in the black and white photo, not smiling. And because there are so many images of that, and because she's in the widow's weeds the entire time, I think that gives a certain perception of Britain in the 19th century. And it's changing all the time. More and more information is coming around. I don't know if you saw that, but British Pathé released a clip, and it was from 1900 or 1901, so just before Victoria dies. And it's a very short film clip of her in a carriage, and she's smiling. And it's so bizarre. I'll look it up and I'll send you the link. But
okay, cool.
It's so bizarre because she's smiling, and I have never seen her smile before.
Yes.
And it's a completely different perception of it. But I do think, all that black, come on, you lived through the age of synthetic dyes, aniline dyes, all the bright colors, all the technology that is at your disposal, and you go with black. At the same time, all power to her, because she stuck to it. And
she committed.
So sorry, Victoria.
Sorry. It's fair though. It gets
dress is all subjective anyway.
Yes, that's why I'm like, what's your opinion? Tell me. People can sign up for this course right now. Do you know when the course will stop open enrollment? Is it going to be tied into like quarantine and everything being shut down, or is it just kind of going to be open flow now?
It normally goes for about a month after we've stopped actually contributing comments and stuff to it. At the moment, Larry Lynn, the curator, and I are going in and dipping it out and making comments and asking questions and trying to answer questions where we can. But the course itself stays open, and so you can dip in and out, and you can go back and you can start again.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Sally, for joining us. And we'll be back here soon because we have other episodes planned, because when there's a pandemic, why not?
Talk about Tartan.
Yeah, let's talk about Tartan. So we will see you again on this podcast, Sally, in the very, very near future. But for now, thank you very much. Thank you for joining me.
For having me.
Yeah, I'm glad the class and the course is going well. And everyone listening at home, feel free to go sign up. The link to the course will be in the description, whether you're listening to this on a podcast or you're watching us on YouTube. The link will be in the description below. So click on that, get signed up, learn all about royal fashion. I need to sign up simply because I want to go look at this leather jerkin. I'm just going to go through the videos and be like, I want to see the goods. Show me the goods. And I will see you all next week, in 2 weeks, in the near future. Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the American Duchess podcast. We hope that you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. If you didn't already know, we're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter, all American Duchess. Our blog is blog.americanduchess.com, and our website is www.americanduchess.com. You'll find the links to all of these in the description below, including links to our guest's website and social media. Until next time!